4 years ago, I had less than $1,400 left in my bank account, and last week, we just crossed $14 million in sales. And chances are this is the first time you've seen any of my videos because I haven't made a single video in the last 1 year and 3 months. And so this comeback video, I genuinely just want to share with you my story. I've been able to achieve some pretty incredible things. Like in 2021, I was able to buy my dream Lamborghini Huracan. I've been able to travel all over the world, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Peru. I've been able to use the wealth to actually fund causes that matter. And I've given over 6 figures in donations to funding over international mission trips, my local church, as well as fighting against human trafficking. I've been able to provide for my family by actually taking them on all-inclusive vacations. I recently just got married to the wife of my dreams, and it was all possible because of the ability to be able to provide. But it definitely wasn't always like this. Now I come from an immigrant family. My parents are both Chinese immigrants. They came to the United States on student visas, and right out of the gate, we pretty much had no money. And so from a young age, around 12 years old, I just knew in the future, I have to make good money because good money allows for me to provide for my family, and I don't want my parents to suffer. And in my mind, because both my parents are just engineers and they had the 9-to-5 mentality, I thought, well, what's a higher income earning job? And like every single Asian parent out there, my parents wanted me to become doctors. And so I knew from a very young age, cool, I'm gonna become a doctor. I get to help a lot of people. I get to glorify God by serving people. It's a pretty biblical concept. And on top of that, I get to make good money. Now, I worked pretty hard in high school and I got decent grades because of it. And so I was very fortunate to have been admitted into UCLA, which at that time and still is the #1 ranked public research university in the United States. And I studied biology because still at this time, I knew I wanted to become a doctor. And that summer, between my first and second year, I started working on an ambulance. And this was extremely pivotal for me because I worked on a 911 response ambulance where I would literally be the first person to show up on site. And I chose the most poor, most dangerous locations to work in Los Angeles. I'm showing up first on scene with police officers, with the fire departments, responding to drug overdoses, domestic violence, fires, car accidents, the worst of the worst stabbings and shootings in South Central Los Angeles. And that experience on the ambulance changed my life because it made me realize, I don't know if you know this, I was paid $12 an hour as an emergency medical technician. Think about that. When you call 911, person that literally responds to you on site to save your life is only being paid minimum wage. And I was like, I cannot work a 9-to-5 job. I cannot have someone else control my time and my income and be here trading time for money. And this is really important for me because I realized, man, I don't really know if becoming a doctor really is what I want to do anymore. And that summer, I actually really looked up to a company that you might know called Gymshark. And so my last week studying abroad in England, where I only had a couple $100 left, I bought a train ride, it was $150, and I took a 5-hour trip out to Solihull where their Gymshark headquarters was, and I had literally zero expectation. I just really wanted to meet Ben Francis and ask him a question because I knew that he had dropped out of college to pursue his dreams, and I was thinking about dropping out of my pre-med path. I actually had a chance to sit down with Ben for about an hour, and it was crazy because I couldn't imagine I was sitting here next to one of my role models, and I asked him, Ben, how did you know that dropping out of university was the right thing for you? And Ben told me, Richard, the reason why I dropped out of college was because I knew what's the worst thing that could possibly happen. I started a business, it fails, I started another one, it fails, I could always go back to school. But being young and being in a position to take risks, once I have kids, once I get married, once I have family, I can't do that anymore. So Richard, what you need to do is take a bigger risk. I shook his hand and I want you to pay close attention here. I said, Ben, you've inspired me to take a bigger risk. I'm gonna dream a bigger dream now. And then I left. And literally 48 hours later, I was going to a church. This was my last weekend in England. And I went there and there was a pastor, and this pastor at the end of his message told us, there's 2 things I regret doing in my life. The first thing is I should have taken a bigger risk. And the second thing he said, get this, I should have dreamed a bigger dream. It was literally word for word what I had spoken to Ben Francis 48 hours at a completely different environment. I actually broke down crying in that congregation in that moment, and I just knew, I got goosebumps think about this right now, but I just knew that was God telling me, Richard, you need to take a bigger risk, trust in me, and know I'm gonna be here for you. And so right then and there, I decided I'm gonna put pre-med on pause, and I decided to go all in on entrepreneurship at this point. And this is where I head into the second phase of my life that I call the struggle. Because as soon as I got back, I started all these different business ventures. In fact, I started 4. I started a dropshipping business, a jewelry business where I sold to sororities and fraternities at my local school. I started an agency business, and the most fun one, I started an ATM business. And over the course of the next 6 months, I ended up filling one after the other, and I was barely able to afford rent, and so I started charging Lime scooters around the UCLA campus just so I was able to pay rent and keep the lights. And on December 27th, 2018, something crazy happened. I got a phone call from the local police department telling me the ATM machine that I had placed at a local restaurant in the UCLA area actually ended up getting robbed. And I had borrowed $2,000 from my father just to buy the machine, and I had put thousands of dollars of my own personal money inside the machine so that it could be used. I lost everything. I'll never forget when I called up my father and I told him the news and I said, "Dad, I just lost $2,000 you gave me for the machine. I know I was supposed to pay you back, but I can't." And I could just feel the frustration and stress inside of his mind, because at this point he was actually unemployed from his job because he had just been laid off. And during that winter break when this happened, I actually fell down on my knees and I prayed to God saying, "God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Could you please just place a Christian mentor who's successful in business in my life?" That day, a podcast episode popped up on my phone called Born to Impact, founded by a guy named Joel Marin. And long story short, I DM'd him over 43 times over the next 2 months before he finally actually responded to me. I sent him my phone number on Instagram and he called me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually him." I pick up and he says, "Hey Richard, I just want to let you know, I normally never called my followers." He had over 2 million followers at this time. "I just felt God place something in my heart and tell me to call you." So we start having this back and forth conversation. And he finds out about the story of the fact that I failed 4 businesses. I told him about how I was pre-med, I didn't want to do it anymore. And he just starts laughing at me. I was like, "Why are you laughing?" He says, "Richard, you're not an entrepreneur." I said, "What do you mean? I have all these businesses." And he says, "You're not an entrepreneur. You're a wantrepreneur," meaning a wannabe entrepreneur. You think that you're an entrepreneur because you change your Instagram bio to entrepreneur label and you're posting all these photos of yourself shaking hands and going to all these networking events. But the reality is you don't know how to sell. You don't know how to have service delivery. You don't know how to build a product. You don't know how to actually do social media marketing. You don't know how to run ads. You told me all these skill sets I'm missing. He says, "Richard, what you actually need to do, you need to go work for a mentor, gain skills from an entrepreneur who's already doing at least 7 figures a year, learning these skills so that in 1, 2, 3 years, you've gained all these skills now, you can actually build a business." That was where it finally clicked in my mind. The way to become a successful business owner is not trying to do all these things yourself. The way I was supposed to do it is find a mentor. And so he connects me with a guy named Vince. And his business was growing really, really quickly at this point. It had just crossed over $1 million a year. Now his business model at the time was really simple. He had a $5,000 coaching program. In a $5,000 coaching program, he would sell through social media. So he would run an advertisement. The advertisement would go to his Instagram account or social media account. He would actually need someone type messages and DM those followers in order to book those sales calls. And then he, as the business owner, would actually take the sales call and close the deal. And so at this point, what I realized is, shoot, well, why don't I just come in and take over this messaging for you? And I stumbled my way into this opportunity of remote setting. And it's crazy because my first month doing this, I actually made $4,000. And this was literally the first taste of online or Wi-Fi money that I had. And so my first month I made $4,000, my second month I made $5,000, and then I ended up making $6,000 my third month. And this was just around the time I was actually just about to graduate from UCLA. And so at this point, all I did was I began documenting my journey on YouTube, which again, if you go back to 2019, you'll see all the videos. I made literally weekly videos documenting how I was working for Vince, I was being productive studying. Now, as soon as I graduated from UCLA, I was promoted to become a phone closer. Because remember I told you that one person actually DM'd people to book the sales call? I realized that you're making commission every single time at about 4% as an appointment setter, but if you take the phone call and you close the deal, you actually make 10% commission, which meant that my earnings could go by 2.5 times. And my best month I actually made with him was over $19,000 in commissions. Now, it was during this time that I had gained so many skills working for my mentor, and I had actually built my own audience, over 100,000 subscribers at this time, and I knew, hey, I think it's time that I can actually build my own thing. So on March 23rd, 2020, I actually launched a productivity coaching program for $500. And that week that I launched the program, I made $50,000, and it completely blew my mind. And from March of 2020 to November of 2020, I actually did over $500,000 in sales with this product. I have a lot of peers in the industry actually now asking me, how the heck did I build a coaching business to $500,000 in sales in 8 months? That's where I realized, hey, I think I can help other people turn their passion and their knowledge into a coaching program as well. So in December of 2020, at the end of the year, I actually launched another coaching program, and this was actually teaching other people how they could turn their passions into an online coaching business. And the first month that I launched this in December of 2020, I actually ended up doing $118,000 in sales. And again, it blew my mind. And now we head into 2021, which is the year I like to call the year that changed everything. Because this is where I went from a solopreneur to actually being a real business owner and building a team to over 20 people. At this point, I'm 22 years old. My net worth is just around $500,000, give or take, sitting in the bank account. In that year, the one thing I really focused on was the client results. And it got to the point where we went from $100,000 a month in the month of January 2021, and 8 months later, we hit $700,000 in cash collected in 1 month. And this was the most exhilarating, most aggressive sprint of my life in my career in business. And by the end of 2021, my net worth is now about $3-4 million. And that was where I finally felt confidence, feeling I'm a real business owner at this point. And at the end of that year, I really wanted to treat up my parents. So I bought a really expensive all-inclusive 5-star resort for my parents to a vacation in Cancun. And one thing I actually want you to know was I met a really pretty lady at the hotel that I was staying at. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as I transition into the next year. Now, 2022 is the year I call acceleration, because what happened in 2021, where I went from $500,000 in sales, over $5 million in sales, we pretty much did it again in 2022. I also really got close to this girl that I met in Cancun. But the problem was she lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I was living in Texas, Austin. So at the end of March, I packed up everything into 2 suitcases. I moved out of my home in Austin and I moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina alone, and I got an apartment so I could be closer to her. And that was when everything changed. Now, up until this point, my business was only business to business. We would work with coaches, consultants, people that wanted to start an online education business. But then I also had a lot of students that didn't have any knowledge. I would constantly get this in my Instagram DMs where people would say, Richard, I really want to start a coaching business, but I don't know anything to coach on. And I just never had anything to offer or help these individuals with. But by August of 2022, that's where I realized something. I got started in business, not starting a coaching business. Do you know what I did? I became a remote setter. And I worked for a 7-figure business owner, my mentor Vince, and gained skills within that business. And I did that for over a year before I started my own business. So we created the official setter certification program, which is a coaching program that teaches complete beginners, and we would teach them how to become appointment setters. And the first month that we launched the coaching program, we did close to $200,000 in sales in addition to our B2B company. Remember I told you I have all these businesses that we consult for that are doing $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month. They all needed appointment setters because they needed people to DM for them. And so what we would do is we would take all the graduates of our setter certification program and we would give them jobs with our business to business clients. And that takes me to present day in February of 2023 as I'm filming this for you in my office here in Puerto Rico. And life has completely changed. My business now does anywhere from $800,000 to $1.1 million a month at 70% profit margins. I'm 24 years old. I just got married to the woman of my dreams. And most importantly, I've been able to do all of this without sacrificing my relationship with God. And so the reason why I made this video for you is for 2 reasons. Number one, I just want to let you know that I used to be a no one. I had no money. I was a student that I was addicted to porn. I had no girlfriend. In fact, I just got dumped by someone. I failed 4 different businesses, and there was literally nothing in my life that showed evidence that I was going to be successful. Yet because I trusted in God, I found an answer, and I worked my face off over these past few years, I was able to build something of absolute significance that has now resulted in this empire of over $14 million in sales. And the second reason why I'm making this video is because I want to share the transparent, raw, no filter strategies that I'm using as I'm growing my online consulting business from right now a $10 million a year company to 10xing to $100 million a year over the next 3 to 5 years. And I just want to give you everything, and I want to give it to you for free. So I strongly encourage you to hit that subscribe button if you are new here, turn on that notification bell. And if you're working a 9-to-5 job right now and you're thinking, well, Richard, how do I get started online? I actually put together a video for you on the best way to start making money right now in this modern day. That video is for you right there. So I encourage you to follow along this journey. I'm not going anywhere for the next coming few years. I'm going to be documenting everything, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video.